We want.
We want
15.
15.
We want.
We want
COVID relief.
COVID relief.
We want.
We want
15.
15.
We want.
We want
Health care.
health care.
We want.
We want
Living wages.
living wages.
When do we want it?
No.
Today, we are gathering in 8 states, plus the District of Columbia. I just dropped my mask. 8 states plus the District of Columbia. The Poor People's Campaign, a national call for a moral revival, has joined SEIU, One Fair Wage, CWA, to demand health care for all, 15 an hour minimum wage for all, and full and just COVID relief. I'm going to try to get out of the way. You see all the people behind, lift your signs up. Now, you need to know here in West Virginia, and particularly for the West Virginia media, there's 710,000 poor people and low-income people in West Virginia. 350,000 of them work for less than $15 an hour. That's 50% of the people in this state working for less than a living wage. Many of them don't have health care. That's not right, and it's time to turn it around. We also want you to know that as we come here today, we got the lottery building on one side and the hospital on the other. The people in this state that don't make 15, they are playing Russian roulette lottery with their lives. Many of them can't even go to the hospital. It's time for that to be over. And Senator Manchin has the power in this moment to make it so, and to be either the greatest advocate for justice and economic equity, or one of the greatest adversaries in this century and the last century. We also in Arizona today, 2.9 million people are poor and low income. 1.2 million make less than a living wage in Arizona. And Kristen Sinema, the senator there, there's no reason you should be talking about not supporting full COVID relief with $15 an hour. We're in 8 states. In D.C., we're gathering today 45.8 million poor and low-income people, 18 million who make less than $15 an hour. We must be clear that raising the minimum wage to 15 an hour, full health care, full COVID relief is essential to lifting up those who have been hurt the worst in this society, those who have died first, those who got sick first, those who forced to go to work first. They shouldn't be the last ones to get help. And it doesn't matter to us whether they're black, they're white, they're brown, they're native, or they're Asian, or they're young, or they're old, or whether they come from urban areas, or whether they come from West Virginia, or whether they come from Appalachia or Alabama. We are God's children, and it's time for this to change. This is our economic Selma. You can't build back unless you build up from the bottom. We also need to know that raising the minimum wage will lift nearly 30 million poor and low-income workers' wages and put $333 billion plus in their pockets over 10 years. These are the workers raising their children. We have 62 million people across this country who will be lifted by $15 million an hour minimum wage. Now, Senator Manchin, this is also Black History Month. And there are 2 things that we want to say to the senator. You grew up in these hills. You tell us that you grew up poor, then you know it shouldn't be that way. People shouldn't have to struggle like this. We should make sure we can do this, and we should do it now. But Senator Manchin also loves to quote Dr. King, and I'm glad he does. But you need to understand, Dr. King was for a living wage. And if you vote against this, raising a living wage, you will be blocking 44% of all African Americans workers across this country from having a living wage. It has taken black people 400 years to get to from 0 to 725. We can't wait any longer for 15. And in the hills of West Virginia, it has taken far too long. For far too long, the people in West Virginia and in the hills of West Virginia have built this country, and it's time that somebody cares about them and lifts them up. So this is about racial equity. It's about justice equity. It's about geographical equity. Senator Manchin, because you grew up in poverty, you ought to be the strongest and the loudest for COVID relief with 15 an hour. It is because of your experience. It is because of it. You say you're concerned about small businesses. Well, small businesses grow when poor and low-wealth people have money in their pocket. That's how they grow. Now, we've never been this close. And we say to Democrats, if you turn back on this, it will be one of the greatest missteps and wrongful promises, because you promised it in your platform. You promised it in the presidential. If you turn back now, you will be abandoning the very people that voted for you. 55% of all poor and low-wealth people voted for Democrats. Republicans also. We're not letting the senator here, the junior senator. Republicans, you need to stop blocking and start lifting. Senator Manchin, you need to be strong and clear and focused as a Democrat. The Republicans, you need to stop blocking and start lifting, because we are all God's children, and it's time that we care about those from the bottom first. Do not call us essential workers and then don't provide the essential things that we need. The time is now. Our next speakers are coming right up right now from West Virginia. First, Gene and Pam.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Jean Evans-Moore, and I was born and raised here in West Virginia. I currently live in Fayette County. Well, last Thursday, Senator Manchin met with the Poor People's Campaign. He had double masking. He had contacted us for a meeting. We did not contact him. I want you to know that. What we have done got his attention, so he contacted us. Well, one of the things I heard Senator Manchin say is he was born and raised poor. His family was poor. He knows West Virginians are poor. Well, I am wondering, since he knows West Virginians are poor, and since he knows the position he is in, why is he not working to give us the full 15 minimum wage? He knows that is lower than what is needed right now. Well, Senator Manchin, we are here to help you become the senator that you don't think you can be. That's our job. We're going to help you do that. You know we have low income. We have people who are actually the people we're talking about. They're going to come and talk to you some more. You have met some already. But we're going to keep at it. We're not quitting. We're not giving up.
That's right, that's right.
And I want you to know, over there a little bit is Senator Capito. We're not letting you off the hook.
That's right.
You are representing West Virginians also. And we also know that you and Senator Manchin like to do these things together and get them in the newspaper. That's wonderful. Now, we want to see the two of you become the heroes and sheroes of West Virginia. You get together. Okay. Something I kind of thought of, I'd kind of forgotten. Senator Manchin mentioned this $11 an hour minimum wage. You can make it off $11 an hour. Well, I don't think so, because you're going to hear at some point one of our speakers who knows that is not true. Senator Manchin, do the right thing. Become the senator that you can become. Take care of West Virginia. Okay.
Thanks, ma'am.
Hello, my name's Pam Garrison. I've been a minimum wage worker my whole life, and I don't want it to be generational. Our kids are working minimum wage now. We have to take the people on Social Security. We're supporting our young people because on minimum wage, they're paying $50 for a box of diapers.
That's right.
They're paying $700 to $800 rent, $350 utilities. They cannot live like that. And the older ones, it's our kids. Every one of us want to see our kids do better. We don't want to make poverty a generational thing that we hand to our kids to rake and scrape. And our grandkids, the schools are feeding our kids right now, after school and on the weekends, because there is such a food shortage, such a food insecurities in West Virginia. This ain't right, people. This ain't right. We're not lazy. We work. We work.
That's right.
We want a living wage. We want unions. We want health care. We want just what basic people need. And that's all we're asking for. Live in our shoes. Live in our shoes one day. One day. And you will see $15 an hour is not too much. We want to live. COVID relief is not too much. And if we can afford lotteries, we can afford to feed our kids.
That's right.
Thank you, and join us.
What do you say to Senator Manchin?
Senator Manchin, listen. Listen to your people. We don't want a handout. We want fair.
That's right.
Come and give us what we want.
That's right.
Do what is right.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do what is right. Do what is right.
Ready?
All right. Go, my brother.
My name is Matt Kerner, and anytime I speak, I like to start out by saying that I am a person living in long-term recovery from a substance use disorder. What that means to me is that for almost 15 years, I haven't had a drink or used any mood or mind-altering chemicals to adjust my reality to make my life acceptable to me. What 15 years of recovery has done for me is allowed me to be somebody who has taken the darkest moments of my life and turned them into my greatest assets.
Yes, sir.
So that today I can help other people escape addiction, escape homelessness, and escape poverty.
Yes, sir.
When I came out of the Army in 1990, I began working the very next day in a lumber mill for minimum wage, which at the time was $3.80 an hour. That meant that after taxes, I made $138 a week for 40 hours of backbreaking labor. Adjusted for inflation, that $3.80 today would be $765, which is less money people are making now working for minimum wage than I did then.
That's right.
But that $138 a week meant that when I needed to see a medical specialist because I had no health care, I had to save money for months. And after I finally got that appointment, the prescriptions that were ordered for me, there was no way I could pay for those.
That's right. Not right. Let's change it.
Most of my money at that time went to maintaining and putting fuel in a 20-year-old pickup so I could get to work the next week. Working for minimum wage meant that as a U.S. Army veteran, I was so poor that I had to live with my mother because I couldn't afford to be self-sufficient. When I worked at that lumber mill, I was in the office one day and somebody came in there, he was begging the plant manager for a raise. His wife was pregnant, and due to a complicated pregnancy, she couldn't work. She wasn't going to be able to work for an extended period of time, and he was told by the plant manager that minimum wage is our way of telling you if we could pay you any less, we would.
Talk to Senator Manchin. Tell him what you need. Today
I work in the addiction recovery field. And one of my greatest concerns is that when I release people, I release them back into poverty, which greatly exacerbates the chances of them relapsing or re-engaging in criminal behavior. Things that would not happen if they had the dignity of working for a living wage. Senator Manchin,
that's it. Talk to him.
Low-wage workers across this country are counting on you. You have made yourself a linchpin of what is happening now in Congress. They're holding their breath and they're praying that you'll come through for them. We've spoken once, and you've talked about 2018 as being your last campaign. And whether or not that happens, we all know that you aren't working in the U.S. Senate because you needed a job. We know that you're doing that because part of your makeup is wanting to be of service to others. And the bottom line is that at some point in our lives, we all want to be the hero. We've all sat on an empty playground basketball court with the clock in our head running down. We're down to 3 seconds and we got to take that shot because we're going to bring the NCAA championship banner home to the Coliseum in Morgantown. Senator Manchin, take your shot. Do what's best for West Virginia's families and children. Think it. Bring that home to us.
That's it. That's it.
Where's the Joe Manchin?
We want it now. We want it now. We want it.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the West Virginia Poor People's Campaign for inviting me to speak to, as Dr. King said, the fierce urgency of now and why we can't wait for a living wage to relieve the suffering occurring in West Virginia. My name is Reverend Brad Davis, a United Methodist pastor serving in the hills and hollers of West Virginia's southern coalfields, in a town called Logan, in a region and among a people on whose backs this nation was built. Now, for those of you that are perhaps unfamiliar with the term holler, it's a narrow depression between hills, a hollowed out, low-lying place. And in many respects, my people are just like the hollers many of us call home. For over a century now, we have been hollowed out. We have been depressed and dispossessed and distressed, forgotten and forlorn, left behind and laid low by a system that has exploited our labor at the expense of our humanity, that values profit margin over personhood. Mine is a people who are crucified people, put on a cross of economic exploitation, devastation, deprivation, hardship, and suffering. Mine is a people struggling for survival in one of this nation's poorest regions, many of whom are forced to juggle multiple jobs, attempting to make ends meet, attempting to feed their families and keep the lights on, while living in a region that has kept America's lights on for generations. Mine is a crucified people, put on a cross of shame and despair. But as Dr. James H. Cone reminds us, God's salvation is a liberating event in the lives of all who are struggling for survival and dignity in a world bent on denying their humanity. That God's liberation of the poor is the primary theme of the gospel of Jesus. Indeed, that is God's good news. The good news that fills the hollowed out, empty spaces with more than enough. The good news that lifts up those that are laid low. The good news that says you are somebody. You are a human being made in God's image, that you're worth more than the company's bottom line. The good news that resurrects those shackled in the depths of economic despair and brings much needed relief. It is time to take my people off the cross. It is time to remove my people from the cross of lack. So I invite you to join me today in calling all those that have the ability to make this a reality, to let my people go. Thank you.
There you go.
All right. SEIU.
In the house. I'm a born and raised West Virginian, raised in Boone County, West Virginia. I'm Vicki Tully. I'm a Head Start teacher. And if any of you know about Head Start, that's the underprivileged children. And it was a program that was started to give those children a head start. And I serve families every day that have to work 2 and 3 jobs. I myself don't make $15 an hour, and I've worked for Head Start for 25 years. I'm a mother and a grandmother, and my children had to leave the state to make a living. My children, my grandchildren all live in other states, one as far as Wyoming. Let's give people a reason to stay in West Virginia. Give them a reason to live here, to raise their families. Give them the means to do it. That they don't have to leave, or they don't have to choose between, do I pay this bill or do I buy my medicine? We need to give people the wages to be able to live and to live comfortably. Thank you. There you go.
Thanks. Hello. My name is Marquise Washington. And first things first, let me put this down. I want to apologize to all the people that this is too late for. I want to apologize to every grandmother, every mom, every daughter, every son that this is coming too late for. Because for you, $15 an hour, you aren't important enough to get that. For you, $15 an hour, you aren't important enough. For you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that Senator Manchin, Senator Capito, they don't have enough love and support for you. I'm sorry. I want to personally apologize that they don't love you enough, that your work isn't important enough, that no matter what you do, that no matter what you say, they don't love you, that you can go to work 40 hours a week and try to provide for your family, but that doesn't mean that you have the right to own a house too. You still have to put food on the table. So that doesn't mean that you can afford medicine. That doesn't mean that you can afford a car. You get the bare minimum to them, and that's all you're worth. So I'm sorry. Secondly, what I want to say is, people who are against $15 an hour, you're against America. What you're saying to people is they're worth less than. We're worth less than a living wage. Hello, 1920s. That's where we're at. Cut it out. Senator Manchin, I know you personally. I've known you since I was 7 years old. You know my grandfather. You know my dad. You know my mom. Are you telling me, my city, my people, my state, we're not worth it? We're not worth $15 an hour? Well, why don't you come meet me and tell me that to my face? Come see me down here. You can meet me at the river. We can talk. Tell me that I'm not worth $15 an hour. Tell me that grandmothers, moms, sons, daughters, children aren't worth having a house and a car. Tell me that they're not worth being able to live and make ends meet. I've watched people struggle. I've watched children go hungry. I've watched people be put out and their parents be working 2 and 3 jobs. It's not fair. You get to ride around in a nice car with TVs in it, and I bet you there's a touch screen. I bet your seats might even be warmed. Guess what? I walked here. I'm 32 years old. I walked here. And I'm out here every day fighting for my community. I don't have the luxury of having a vehicle. And I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, like you say you do. You don't need all them flashing cars and all that stuff that you do. You don't need all them extra rooms in your home. Your daughter didn't need to charge us extra money just so that I can survive off of this EpiPen. Do the right thing. If you say that your morals are always going to help you make a decision, sir, then I think you are going to vote yes for this COVID relief bill and for a $15 minimum wage because we're worth it, right? West Virginia, right? We're stronger together, right? Right? That's what you said during the flood, right? Well, you see us struggling. You see us barely making it. You see us not surviving. And if you have the option and the chance to do something about it, why are you standing there and doing nothing about it? Man, the ball's in your court. You're playing basketball. We're doing nothing. We're sitting here cheering you on.
Cheering them on.
All you have to do, all you got to do is stand up and say yes, because my people deserve it. My people deserve to be able to have a car. The children deserve to be able to see their family. They shouldn't have to worry about their mom working 2 and 3 jobs and having to go to their grandma's house because they don't get to see their mom and dad because they're trying to provide. Vote yes. Do what you need to do. We all deserve $15 minimum wage, and we all deserve health care.
Yes, sir.
Be blessed. Wear 2 masks if you can. Remember to wash your hands. And everybody, be blessed. Teach one. Each one teach one.
That's right. Thank you, Monkey. Yes, sir. This is the real deal in West Virginia. This is the real deal in West Virginia.
This pandemic has been financially devastating for far too many. And last year, during the heart of the pandemic, for just 6 months, our top 5 billionaires made over $200 billion, while the rest of us were devastated. This is not okay. While we barely afford a McChicken, they swim in gold like Scrooge McDuck. No wonder we're sickened and stricken when clearly they don't give a care in the world. It's no wonder we close more and more churches every year because people can't pay the rising cost of heating, of water, and of insurance. It's no wonder our folks can't pay their rent or groceries as those costs skyrocket year after year when their wages stay exactly the same. It is no wonder that we cannot make it right now. Every year you are denied a raise is one more moment when your employer literally says you are worth less to me today than you were 1 year ago. We need more. We can no longer send out all my classmates and all my friends to our surrounding states. We do not need to do this anymore. Our greatest export isn't coal. Our greatest export is our workforce, our brilliant minds. Our greatest export is our hope for tomorrow, and it is running out. We deserve this. You deserve a raise. Everyone deserves a raise. So stop believing the lie. You deserve it. You deserve it. So call Joe and let him know. 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 Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Yandi. All right, you're up.
All right.
Look right at the iPhone. That's your
Yep.
camera. I can hold that.
Oh, awesome.
There you go.
And will you? Oh, I need this actually. Sorry, guys. Bear with me just one moment. So hey y'all, my name is Chris Kincaid and I traveled here to be here today all the way from Beckley. I'm a mom of 3 and I've pretty much worked minimum wage jobs my entire life. From fast food restaurants, you know, to your general janitorial work. I've done it all. And I love cooking in restaurants. I love cooking and I love getting to talk to the people. You know, all the different kinds of people that you get in. What I haven't loved is the pay. That's something I haven't loved. So, you know, over the years I'd moved up in the restaurant industry. And, you know, eventually I became a manager. And the pay didn't raise that much. It still sure wasn't a living wage, and it surely didn't bring me up out of poverty. Well, up until the beginning of the pandemic last year, I was managing a bar and restaurant for 5 days a week. I got a full 40 hours a week, and I still qualified for food stamps. And I was still in poverty. It didn't matter that I worked 40 hours a week. It didn't matter that I had worked over the last decade to move up in the industry. None of that mattered. So at the beginning of the pandemic last year, the bar and restaurant that I managed closed down, just like so many other small businesses have during the pandemic. So now I'm a janitor. I clean banks in the evening, I clean your dentist office and doctor's offices, I clean your factory. You know, it's become even more apparent during this pandemic that we have become essential. Not that we weren't always essential, but I think people are realizing now how essential we are during this pandemic. We're the people who keep your businesses up and running. In a time where no one wants to be within 6 feet of another, here we are picking up your trash and changing it, wiping down every surface you touch, and making sure that your businesses are cleaned and sanitized so you can continue to show up for work every day. And yet, we're so essential, and yet we're not paid enough to support ourselves or our families. We're not considered for hero pay or even to be on the list of people who deserve vaccines. We're looking at the end of this year before any of us will qualify. We deserve and we demand workplace protections. We deserve and we demand Medicaid for all. There's no reason why I should have to worry about whether I can afford to pay for my own vaccine or not. Which, by the way, I can't. Not on a janitor's salary. We demand and we deserve $15 minimum wage.
That's right, that's right.
Period. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. We demand a living wage now. And I think we deserve it. Not only myself, my co-workers, but for my family. I just want to say, there's so many people with stories just like mine. They're told they're essential. They're heroes for keeping our economy and our businesses open. And yet they can never seem to find the money to let us live in dignity.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
What do we want? 15. When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
15.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want? COVID relief. When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want? When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want? When do we want it?
Now.
Oh. What do we want? Healthcare for all. When do we want it? Now. What do we want?
Healthcare for all.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Healthcare for all.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want? Vaccine equity. When do we want it? Now. What do we want?
Vaccine equity.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Vaccine equity.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Vaccine equity.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Vaccine equity.
When do we want it?
Now.
Repeat after me. Poor People's Campaign.
Poor People's Campaign.
A national call for moral revival. Poor People's Campaign.
Poor People's Campaign.
A national call for moral revival.
National call for moral revival.
In this movement, we have a saying that says, somebody's been hurting my family. Say that.
Somebody's been hurting my family.
And it's gone on for far too long. And we won't be silent anymore. Somebody's been hurting my brother. And it's gone on for far too long. And we won't be silent anymore. Somebody's been hurting my sister. And it's gone on for far too long. And we won't be silent anymore. Somebody's been hurting my sibling. And it's gone on for far too long. And we won't be silent anymore. Repeat after me, poorpeoplescampaign.org.
Poorpeoplescampaign.org.
If you go there, we have a call-in tool so that you can call Senator Manchin's office. Everybody say, call Senator Manchin.
Call Senator Manchin.
Tell him what we want.
Tell him what we want.
Call Senator Manchin.
Call Senator Manchin.
Tell him what we want.
Tell him what we want.
Y'all, today has been awesome. Give yourself a round of applause.